I'm guessing we'll have some stragglers come back from lunch, and so you can give them dirty looks when they walk through the door. Thank you for being here. This is always an exciting start to our semester, just to get the first professional show rolling. And I want to quickly introduce our guest artist because it's more about you hearing from him and seeing his work. And the scariest part for me today is just pronouncing his last name. There's a lot of C's and K's and X's put together. And so I want to welcome Andrew Verhoeckx. All right, see, I was close, not perfect. But I want to introduce Andrew V. As our 2017 fall exhibition. And very quickly, if you look at his website, you're going to see that he's got amazing credentials, and we're very grateful to have an artist of his caliber here today. So real quickly, he's got his Bachelor of Fine Arts degree from the University of Windsor, his Master of Fine Arts from Cranbrook Academy of Arts, a very prestigious art school, internationally recognized in Bluefield Hill, Michigan. Going on, looking at his website, you can peruse it and see that he's got an extensive exhibition record, numerous awards, collections, publications, even done some teaching. And so I am just very pleased to introduce Andrew Verhoeckx as our guest artist today. Please join me in welcoming him.
Thank you for coming. I'm not really a public speaker, so bear with me. Like many young males, I grew up in automobile family. My dad worked for Chrysler's, so that got me into my passion for cars. And growing up in the 80s, there wasn't too many spectacular cars. Most cars were square and plain looking. I don't know if people knew what 80s cars look like, but if you do, you can visit websites to check out 80s cars. So I went to a local car show with my father in the 80s, and I seen a black 70 Cuda, and that really amazed me. I'd never seen anything like that before. And I don't know if it was the color, because it had an orange engine, which the contrast between the orange and the black really stood out to me. And that brought my first love for cars. And that's when I said, this is what I want when I grow up. So that night, while I was in bed praying, I was talking to God about cars. And he spoke to me. He said, pick a car between a Charger or a Cuda. At the same time, the Dukes of Hazzard was in fashion, so I knew what a Charger was. So I said, I don't know which one. And he said, pick one. And I said, I don't know. And he said again, pick one. And so without much thought, I said, okay, I'll take the Cuda. And at this time, I was about 12 years old. And so I decided to start saving my money, because this is a plan for me. So I said, take any job I can get. So I did jobs like cutting grass, raking leaves. I had a paper route. And I remember waiting when I was in grade 6. I was in line, last day of school before summer, and the student behind me said, what are you doing for summer? And I told him, I'll be working. I'm saving money to buy a car. And he starts laughing. And he says, you can drive. Why would you need a car? But I wasn't going to let this distract me from God's promise and purpose for my life. And so I continue saving my money. As years passed, I say to myself, where's my car? I haven't got a car yet. And I'm wondering, God, where's your prayer? At that time, I didn't know some prayers take longer to answer because there's timing involved, and I just can't get what I want. I need God's direction first. So by this time, I'm 16 years old, and I'm still waiting for my car. I'm actively looking for a car in classifieds. And I seen this advertisement for a 72 Cuda for sale. And not knowing much about cars, I had to ask my dad for help. Because who knows what I could buy, and I don't want to get myself in trouble. So we arrived at the seller's apartment, and he takes us down into the dark garage. And there it was a 1972 gray primer car. It wasn't much to look at, and it was very difficult to breathe as well. The car did not run well, and inside that garage, the fumes piled up pretty quickly. So I didn't care it was in gray primer, because I would just paint it. I didn't care if the fenders were dented, because I would just replace them. I didn't care if the carpets were trashed, because I would purchase a new one. I just had a vision, and the vision was a complete car finished. So that night I went home, and first I told the seller that I was interested, but I would go home and think about it. So that night, as I went back home dreaming about the Cuda that I could have, I wanted to know what God's will is on this matter. So I told him that I liked the car, and God said I told God that the price was too much. And the seller was asking $5,000, and God spoke to me again, and he said $3,500. I said, okay, so if the seller won't take $3,500, then I'll keep looking for a new car. So a few days passed, and I returned the call to the seller, and I told him I would come out and look at the car again and negotiate on price. So I get to his home, and I said, $5,000 is too much. And he interrupted me and said, how about $3,500? And being Dutch and cheap, I said, how about $3,250? And he said no. So I knew that was a car for me, and this is what God promised. So this is the car here, how it looked when I first bought it. Every day I would get home from school, I'm in high school at this time, and I would sit in the car and I would just dream about having the car done, the town driving. And so I was filled with excitement, but I wasn't too concerned about what will happen, because I had a good plan ahead of me. But my mom did not share in that vision. I'm sure she would, she had a talk with my dad about what I brought home. And I'm sure she was concerned about my abilities and age, and if I'm able to tackle a project such as restoring a vehicle. But she didn't have the vision that I saw, and all she could see was a wrecked, abused car. So time goes on, and I'm starting my career as an artist. And I was painting, and I was painting works that reflected what I believed, and that was my faith. And that caused trouble within the art world, or the secular world as well. They don't really take Christianity with much grain of salt. So I get a lot of criticism about having avert Christian beliefs in my artwork. And so I had a professor come to me and say, he knew of my passion for cars and for my faith, and he said I should combine the themes. And so that was a hard concept to do. How do I bring in my faith in God and my car passion? And that's when I started thinking, because at the same time I was working, stripping the engine down and stripping the car apart. And that's where I see the similarities between cars and humans. The way they function, and they mimic each other. So this is the engine and part of the car restored. And this is the car here as well at a car show. All redone. So I started thinking the engine is like the heart. It pumps and we breathe. So by turning the ignition, the car is brought to life. And so too, the heart of man is like a pump. It breathes. And with the breath of God, we live. Through one's life, we become worn out, corrupted, and abused. This is when I remembered what a mom said to me about not having the same vision. She saw an abused, worn out car. And I saw something restored to its original state. And I believe that's how God sees us. We can abuse our hearts with lies and destructive behaviors to a point where we are like the Buddha, abused and discarded. But God sees us as we have always been from the beginning. And He wants to restore our hearts, to bring us back to our true identity. In the past, realist artists would always use, to make paintings, they would use from light drawings, or they would draw sketches or their imagination. But recently, we're able to use photographs. The use of the camera, for me, was a pure form of documentation. I like to document what I was doing with the restoration, so you can have before and after, and also memories aren't always good. Sometimes you forget where things go. So it's good to document where all the parts go in a car. And as I was rebuilding the engine, I took a lot of photos, and having an artistic eye, I would use and take photos very different than how a mechanic would take pictures of an engine. So it was from these photos and through the talk I had about integrating my faith in cars together that I noticed something that I could use. So I decided to use one of the photos as a painting. And so at this time, I was also unaware of the history of photorealism. And I painted a way that came natural to me. And being someone who is driven for perfection and order, it's naturally used. The photo was a natural way for me to paint and to mimic the way the photo looked. And also, it would have been hard for me to bring engine blocks and car parts into my family's home. I'm sure my parents would not be happy with that. And I love the challenge, and I like to push my abilities on how to paint, how to manipulate the paint to do what I wanted it to do, and to fool the eye and the viewer, to make them think what they're looking at is a photo and not a painting, was a great motivator. Photorealism as a movement took form in America in the early 70s. You had other styles before then, but they had different names. But it wasn't until January 1970 that the term photorealism was coined. Other words they would use for this style would be called hyperrealism, magic reel, sharp focus. So without knowing, I became a photorealist without even knowing there was a movement. If you look into the history of photorealism, you will notice that the automobile was the subject of many artists. And I'm just going to show you a few artists who used the car as an image. So the first one would be Don Eddy. He would use airbrush. So airbrush started to become popular at this time as well. For me, the paintings become a bit flat, and you'll see later here some other paintings become a little more rich when it's used oil painting with brushes. This is Tom Blackwell. And most of these artists were all Americans. And so around other countries around the world, this photorealism and using cars wasn't done yet. So another popular artist at this time was Ralph Goings. And he did a whole series of pickup trucks. And then there's Ron Kleeman. So you'll eventually, once you see some of my work, you'll see the heritage of using automobile engines and photorealism. And the only non-American artist at this time was John Salt. His work is right here. But for me, the artist that I admired most in photorealism, his name was Charles Bell. He's best known for his paintings of gumballs and gumball machines and marbles. What I liked about it was his focus and out of focus, using the camera abilities and reproducing those. And he used oil and brushes to do his work. I once had the pleasure to have my work hanging next to his at a show, and that's when I had a first-hand where I get up real close to look at his work. And he has this internal glow that you can see from the painting. There's light that's being emitted from within the painting. And you'll see that in my work as well. And you'll see in this painting in particular, the out of focus, and then the in focus, and stuff that's blurred, and stuff that's crisp. So that was exciting for me to discover that his technique is very similar to my technique. And we both achieved that naturally. And I did not see his work until after I already produced my work. So I felt at home knowing that my work is at a certain level that is comparable to other, I would say, masters at the photorealism. Now I'm just going to very briefly talk about some works that you will not see at this show today if you head over to the gallery, because the work is at private collections or in other people's stands. The first painting I'm going to show here is my first painting I did in photorealism. This one you can see at the show next door. And I just like the quality of the organic. This is all mechanical, cold, and hard items, but just the colors and the way it's painted, you can sort of see some kind of organic, soft, wet forms in there. That's something you don't usually see. And it's a different way of what other photorealists were doing. They were focusing on exteriors of the cars or just outside of the engine. But I was going more at the heart, what works and how engines work, and more of the detail. So this is the time when I was restoring the car, and this is some of the documentations and how I was shooting the pictures or composing the images for documentation. Now, my style would change greatly because I would use photographs, and I would have to hold the photograph in my hand. So I'm working from a little piece of paper, and I can only see so much with my eyes. It's just when I got a computer and use Photoshop, now you can keep zooming in deeper and deeper into the quality of detail, and that can hinder you as an artist because the detail never ends. Where with these earlier paintings, there was a limit where I had to stop because I can't go any further, and I have to use my mind on where to stop the detail. This is one of my favorites. This is carbon green. I just really love the orange. Going back to that original CUDA when I first saw it when I was 12 years old. It's just that orange you see in the bottom left-hand corner. Well, it's not that good here, but on my monitors, it's beautiful. It's really rich and wet. And it doesn't even seem like metal. It seems like, some soft type of flesh. And I like how the movement of this painting as well. You follow the hoses that wraps you around, coming and swings you back to the left and back into the carburetors. There's a lot of nice movement in this painting. I thought this was one of my most successful paintings. Again, with the orange and the black. And I also took liberties not to make the painting exactly the same as the photograph. And I've had many people say to me, why produce a painting like a photograph? Why don't you just blow up the photograph and be done with it? But there's a point of that translation from me initially seeing the object, taking the photograph, so it's already removed from my initial viewing of the image, and then taking that photograph and then reproduce it onto canvas is being removed again from the original source, and then being interpreted through my eyes into my hands. It's also being transformed again. So these paintings are more vibrant and more rich than a photograph. The photographs can be actually quite plain and dry compared to the paintings. I also made changes with the composition sometimes, like this one here. I created the belts to have a motion to it, where other paintings, photorealists, will not change it that much. They would try to reproduce it exactly the same as the photograph. And I started to do larger paintings. This was about 7 feet long, and there were two paintings separate, trying to push different. And so you get to see the carburetors from two views at the same time, from the top and the side view. So one of my biggest challenges for my career was doing a painting that was 17 feet long, where I would spend 3 months on a painting that's 4 feet by 3 feet. I had 3 months to do something 17 feet by 5 feet. So I had to really challenge myself on my painting abilities and skill, how to paint something that large in such a short time. So I dedicated myself to break it down in 3 sections, and then paint 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I thought that would be good enough. This is a month worth of effort of mine, and clearly I was going to meet the deadline. But they had the mayor of Detroit on a ribbon cutting. That painting had to be there. So it would take me over a week to do one coil, just one ring of the coil. It was labor intense. So I decided to change my speed and how I was painting and the amount of hours I was spending. So I moved it to 10 hours a day, 14 hours a day, 18 hours a day, 20 hours a day, 26 hours a day. The day didn't stop. I just continued, and then sleep 2 hours and get up, go for another 20 hours. And this didn't stop for 3 months. So I'm sure on average I'm probably painting 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's a daunting task to look down, because I start on the left, and look down at 17 feet of white canvas. It's pretty difficult to imagine that I would ever finish it. But I always rely on one thing with my work, or anything in life, and that's God. I knew that God already put this challenge in front of me, and that I had it done. So it didn't matter to me that when I looked down, I saw blank canvas. This painting's already finished. I just have to paint it. And here's some of the details, and this is one of the sections I love the most of this painting. Just how the chrome, how I painted it, especially the colors, with the reds, the blues next to each other, and the yellows, and how one thing I love to do with paint is how to blend paint. It's very exciting to move and manipulate the paint to blend from one color to the next, and having transitions of paint is really exciting. So you can really see that in this painting here, where the colors shift from some blues to light greens, or from red to orange, or to browns. And I was unable to finish the painting for the deadline. So they wanted the painting down in their boardroom on a certain date. I forget what date it was, but it was about a week before Christmas. So I rolled it up, still wet, and drove from Toronto down to Detroit, and had it unraveled and reinstalled in their boardroom. And then I spent another week in their office while they were all on break for holidays. And I painted, again, 20 hours a day for the last week, 5 days. And I would sleep on the floor in front of my painting, and then get up and continue painting until I had finished this painting. So this is a completed painting. I only tell people this story is because you want something done, you have to put effort into it. And you can push your boundaries and your abilities beyond what you can think. So if you have deadlines in school, those deadlines are pretty, to me, pretty loose. And if you need to get something done, there's always time of the day you can use to make more hours. So this is the finished piece. And this is me standing next to the work in the office. Okay, so is there any questions? Please pass them my way.
Quick.
Yes.
How did you decide to start where you started on the painting?
On the where I start painting?
Yeah, like the section of the photograph.
Yes. All right. There's two things I have to look at. One thing is I'm right-handed, so I can't work within the paint. I have to work away from the paint. So as you can see, in the beginning, I'm working from the top, down, and over. If I work all the way down to the bottom, then I'm going to run into trouble because there's sections in the painting. I'm pointing to it, you can't see me pointing. You can't see, as I go down the coil, there's sections that need attention that I can't do yet until I finish another section before I get down there. Because and you can see this large piece that runs going up into the coil. I had to have that piece finished before I could paint the rest of the coils. Or the disc brake as it comes around. So there's sections as I move them across, I have to complete first. So there's thought behind it. It's not just random to start painting anywhere. I had to plan ahead and even 3 steps ahead because I could get locked into a section where I'm trapped now. Not just with my hand, but because I need to work something else before I work this other area.
Did you always paint like when you were younger, or was it something that happened at a certain age?
Well, to be honest, I'm not really good at school, or whatever you want to call school. I wasn't good in academics, and so I just tried to pursue something that I enjoyed. And math wasn't my strongest suit, in science. So you can call that a weakness, but I had other strengths. And so with any of your artwork, it takes. I know people will say to me, "Oh, you're so talented," and to me that's an insult. Because talent is not just like a gift. It involves a lot of hard work. And I had to put many hours, not just for practicing, but also think about other skills you have. I had to have a steady hand. When you paint, when I paint, I don't use masking tape or rulers. Once you see the work in person, you'll see how straight my lines are. And that's from steady hand. So I have a slow heartbeat, which gives me a steady hand. So if I had a high heart rate that will cause a little shaky hand. So if I don't drink coffee, I don't use any stimulus, so I have a steady hand. So all those hours of 26-hour shifts, there's no coffee involved or any things to keep you awake. And there's times where I was painting and I actually fell asleep. And so it's really difficult. And so there's so much other abilities you need to become, or whatever you're doing in life, you have other abilities that you use to become good at what you do. And I'm just trying to say that I have many different abilities, not just painting, to get to. Because photorealism is a certain level of technique, and that's sometimes people don't like photorealism because it's just very technique driven. And only certain people can paint this way because it just takes so much effort. And as someone who's a technician, when I look at photorealism, you look at far away and it can look like a photograph. But as you move closer to it, painting can break down. And for me, that ruins it for me. If you can't hold that illusion from a distance and hold that illusion close up, I think you fail as a technician, as a photorealist. So I see a lot of paintings they say photorealism, and then when I look at it, it falls apart. And so I had to work, when you look at my work, you'll see from a distance and up close, I don't let any area of that canvas lose attention. So you will be enjoyed from a distance, enjoyed from the middle, and when you stand inches away with your eyelashes brushing against the canvas, you can enjoy the work and how much attention is brought into every little area of the canvas and the painting.
One last question.
Yes?
How much preliminary sketching do you do to arrive at your design?
0. I just start painting. So I have the photograph and I just use Varsol or some paint thinner, and I'll make a yellow ochre, thin, very thin, and I would just start painting. And I do a quick outline where all these will be, and then start putting color in after that. Now, there's one that, there's a formula to what is photorealist painting. And one of the categories is about transfer. How do you transfer your image, photograph onto a canvas? And so a lot of people, like Chuck Close, he used a grid system, and he would grid everything on, and then you would plot your drawing within that grid, and use colors within that grid. But I want to keep it a little more free and open, because then, and some people even have a color palette. They would match the colors of the photograph for the paint, where I don't do that. I mix the paint as I'm going, and so every color you see is pretty much mixed. There's no real out to onto the canvas. Everything, because color, I don't know if you ever look at photographs or even at color, nothing is a pure color. There's so much variation of, just say it's red, you'll see some oranges in there, and the light will hit it, so you'll see some dark browns. So nothing has a pure color for me, and that's where it's exciting for me to blend that paint. So I just start painting right away. Now, of course, as an artist, you can take any method you want, and other people do whatever their abilities will lead them. So, okay.
Okay, I'm sure Andrew will be willing to take some questions over at the gallery, but let's give him another warm welcome. Thank you.